occasional heck no. Did you hear what they just did in the South Dakota legislature? Did you hear about this today? The South Dakota House of Representatives has passed a resolution urging public schools in that great state to teach kids about climate change in a very specific way. I'm quoting here, "Now let it therefore be it resolved that the South Dakota legislature urges that instruction in the public schools relating to global warming include the following. 1, that global warming is a scientific theory rather than a proven fact. 2, that there are a variety of climatological, meteorological, astrological, thermological, cosmological, and ecological dynamics that can affect world weather phenomena." I think they mean affect with an A, not an E, you guys, first of all. But also, can we just put that second part back up there? There are a variety of astrological dynamics that can affect weather. So maybe it keeps getting hotter every year now because we're having a hot horoscope? The South Dakota House of Representatives is urging public schools to teach that astrology might explain climate change. It's in the stars. Also, thermological? Anybody want to venture a guess as to what they mean by thermological? This resolution actually passed. They voted on it, they passed it, which puts the South Dakota House of Representatives in the running for the single most humiliatingly idiotic thing in the news all week. From Congressman Trent Franks of Arizona, who told video blogger Mike Stark of StarkReports.com that black people in America were better off under slavery than they are in America today. Because, you know, abortion is legal now and stuff.
In this country, we had slavery for God knows how long. And now we look back on it and we say, well, how blind were they? You know, what was the matter with them? You know, I can't believe. I mean, 4 million slaves, this is incredible. And we're right. We're right. We should look back on that with criticism. It is a crushing mark on America's soul. And yet today, half of all black children are aborted. Half of all black children are aborted. Far more black children, far more of the African-American community is being devastated by the policies of today than we're being devastated by the policies of slavery.
Far more of the African-American community is being devastated by the policies of today than we're being devastated by the policies of slavery. Congressman Trent Franks of Arizona solemnly intoning how much better off we were under slavery because, you know, the abortion and stuff. See, there is competition for the single most humiliatingly idiotic thing in the news all week. And in fact, there is yet more competition from Congressman Franks' home state legislature in Arizona, where 3/4 of the Republicans in the House are birthers. 3/4 of the Republicans in the House in Arizona have voted to try to force Barack Obama to show them his birth certificate. If he wants to be on the ballot for his re-election campaign in Arizona, they demand to see the president's birth certificate, which is right here on the screen, actually. Though I'm sure they won't count that because I am obviously a communist Kenyan from the Missile Defense Agency. This isn't one kooky guy. This is 40 of the 90 legislators in the House in Arizona. It passed a House committee already. I mean, how do we choose? How do we choose among these? The competition for the single most humiliatingly idiotic thing in the news all week was so fierce this week. Kent, I understand we have TMI on someone tonight.
Oh, yes. Hi, Rachel. You know how some politicians have a filter on what they say? Iowa Congressman Steve King doesn't have one of those. Take a look.
What could possibly be scarier than Stephen King?
Now, who are we up against? And I want to define that enemy. They are liberals, they are progressives, they are Che Guevarians, they are Castroites, they're socialists, more enemies on this list, Gramsciites, ring anybody's bell? Trotskyites, Maoists, Stalinists, Leninists, Marxists. They're all our enemies.
How about Iowa's eerily conservative congressman, Stephen Arnold Steve King? In his 7 years representing Iowa's 5th District, one thing has become chillingly clear. Steve King will say anything.
And my wife here lives here with me, and I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, that she's in far greater risk being a civilian in Washington, D.C. than an average civilian in Iraq.
Mr. Goodell, then I'd ask you, are you prepared to level the same charges against Fergie and J-Lo, or are you prepared to apologize to Rush Limbaugh today?
It's sad that the incident happened down in Texas, but by the same token, the IRS is is an agency that's unnecessary.
Propriety, restraint, what are these compared to Steve King's relentless siege against all things not Steve King, like immigrants, or should I say, cattle?
We could also electrify this wire with the kind of current that wouldn't kill somebody, but it would simply be a discouragement for them to be fooling around with it. We do that with livestock all the time.
Cujo?
Other targets, President Barack Obama, Al-Qaeda, and dancing, especially in the streets.
I will tell you that if he is elected president, then the radical Islamists, the Al-Qaeda and the radical Islamists and their supporters will be dancing in the streets in greater numbers than they did on September 11th.
Steve King voted against relief funding for Hurricane Katrina, telling the Hill newspaper it was the best vote he ever cast. King was the sole nay vote on a House resolution acknowledging the use of slave labor in the construction of the United States Capitol. King said the children's health care bill, S-CHIP, stood for socialized Clinton-style Hillary care for illegals and their parents. Still, there are things Steve King likes, and those are creepy too. King voted against increasing penalties for dogfighting and cockfighting. On nuclear power, King said, quote, "By the way, if you had been chained to the reactor at 3 Mile Island when it started its reactivity, you would have gotten about the equivalent dose of an X-ray." And he called witch-hunting Senator Joe McCarthy a hero for America.
Look at me.
One final scary thought, Steve King's not finished.
I'm making no plans to run for president. I didn't make any plans to run for Congress either.
Here's Johnny.
Thank you, Ken. Much appreciated.
Sure.
Coming up on Countdown, Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin get ready to share the stage at a Take Back Our Country event. Woohoo! Next on this show, our frequent guest Melanie Sloan is the recipient of one extremely valuable package that she totally didn't want or expect. The amazing details coming up next. On Monday night, Melanie Sloan is home making dinner for her family at her house in Washington, D.C. Melanie's the director of CREW, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. She's been a guest on this show a few times. You've probably seen her. It's a little after 6 o'clock Monday night. She's making dinner, and FedEx drops off a box on her front step. Her husband opens the box and finds inside it another cardboard box, all taped up. Inside that, another box, this time styrofoam, also all taped up. Inside that, he finds blown-in insulation. Inside that, he finds a big ball of saran wrap. Inside the big ball of saran wrap, he finds a big ball of duct tape. Inside that, he finds more saran wrap. Inside that saran wrap, he finds coffee grounds?
Well, when we opened the box, we noticed there was another box inside, and inside of that was a lot of insulation. So as soon as I started seeing that, I was pretty nervous and didn't want to open it. But my husband was very persistent, and eventually we opened up the plastic wrap and saw coffee grounds, and that's when I knew it was drugs.
Drugs! Aha! Like most Americans, Melanie Sloan doesn't generally receive anonymous gifts of ground coffee and saran wrap. Unlike most Americans, Melanie Sloan is a former assistant U.S. attorney, so she knew exactly what was going to be inside the layer of coffee. Turns out it was 33 pounds of pot wrapped in coffee to throw off drug-sniffing dogs. Melanie then called 911.
When cops did arrive at the house, somebody asked me why my German Shepherd wasn't alerting at the drugs, why she wasn't barking, and I had to explain that she wasn't in fact a drug dog, just a pet.
It turns out this isn't that uncommon an occurrence. D.C. police told the Washington Post today that they recover 30 or 40 random drug shipments like this every year. Dealers, it turns out, stake out homes to find people who aren't usually home during the day. They get drugs shipped to those addresses. They use the tracking number to figure out when stuff's going to be dropped off. They grab the parcel off the front step before the homeowner comes home, and no one's the wiser. According to the D.C. cops, it usually works. But not when snowy streets delay delivery trucks and the goods don't arrive home until everybody's home from work, which is what happened at Monday at Melanie Sloan's house. And so, the snowy winter in Washington, which the right wing says has disproven climate change, has also proven an effective tactic in the big, dumb war on drugs. Ta-da! That does it for us tonight. We will see you again on Monday night back in New York.